The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm glow over the small town of Dusty Hollow. At the center stood the Rusty Spur Saloon, its wooden sign creaking gently in the breeze. Inside, the air was filled with the sounds of laughter, clinking glasses, and lively banter. Dust swirled lazily through beams of light as patrons gathered around worn tables, their faces illuminated by flickering oil lamps. The saloon had seen better days, but its charm lingered. The floors were rough and dusty, each creak telling stories of countless visitors. The walls were adorned with faded photographs of cowboys and outlaws who once roamed the wild frontier. But it was the large, ornate mirror that captured everyone's attention, a centerpiece that seemed to hold more than just reflections. Its frame was intricately carved with designs of swirling vines and stars, yet cracks spiderwebbed across its surface. Many whispered that it held secrets of those who dared to gaze into it. The townsfolk believed it could reveal hidden truths or punish wrongdoers by refusing to show their reflections. As laughter echoed around him, a shadowy figure pushed through the door, ready to uncover what those secrets might reveal. The saloon door swung open with a creak, drawing the attention of everyone inside. A tall gunslinger stepped through, his long coat fluttering lightly in the breeze. He moved with a confident stride, boots thudding against the wooden floor, each step echoing like a distant thunderclap. His wide-brimmed hat cast a shadow over his eyes, but those who caught a glimpse saw something deeper, a world of experiences etched into his gaze. He scanned the room, taking in the raucous laughter and playful shouts. Patrons paused, curiosity piqued by his imposing presence. The gunslinger's rugged face spoke of hard living and countless battles fought under the blazing sun. Scars traced along his jawline, telling tales of both loss and survival. Despite this rough exterior, there was a calmness that surrounded him, a quiet strength that held the crowd's attention. As he approached the bar, he noticed the ornate mirror hanging prominently above it. A flicker of interest crossed his face. He had heard whispers about its powers. With every step, he felt an odd mix of excitement and dread. What truths would that mirror reveal to him? What shadows from his past might come rushing back? The saloon held its breath, waiting for what would happen next. As the gunslinger stood before the ornate mirror, whispers filled the saloon about its haunting legend. The townsfolk often spoke of how the mirror had a mind of its own, refusing to show the reflections of those who bore heavy burdens of guilt or had committed great wrongs. It was said that if you approached it with a clean conscience, your image would be clear and bright, but for those with dark secrets, the mirror would remain dark, leaving them to see only an empty space where their reflection should be. Many patrons had dared to look into it, only to walk away shaken and confused, their faces pale as they recalled chilling visions of their past misdeeds. Some claimed they saw their own worst nightmares, betrayals they had committed or lives they had ruined. The air in the saloon grew thick with suspense as stories swirled around about how the mirror could unveil hidden truths that one might wish to forget. With every passing moment, anticipation built. The gunslinger felt the weight of those tales pressing down on him, reminding him of decisions he wished he could erase. Would he stand before this mirror and confront what it might reveal? Or would he turn away from the truth lurking just beyond its surface? The gunslinger stood transfixed, drawn to the ornate mirror like a moth to a flame. He felt an insatiable curiosity bubbling within him, urging him to step closer and confront whatever truths awaited. The whispers of the townsfolk echoed in his mind, recounting how the mirror could reveal the very essence of one's soul. Could it reflect his past choices? Would it show him the man he had become? A flood of memories washed over him. Faces of those he had wronged, decisions made in haste, and alliances broken. Each memory felt like a stone added to the weight he carried. The legend of the mirror haunted him, hinting at the possibility of redemption if he dared to look deeply enough. With a steadying breath, he took a step forward, drawn by the allure of clarity. His heart raced as he imagined the moment he'd finally confront the ghosts of his past. Would it be cathartic or punishing? With his hand resting lightly on the bar, he could feel the heat radiating from the mirror's surface, and for a fleeting moment, he thought about turning away. Yet, in that instant, his curiosity overwhelmed his fear. He was ready to test the mirror's power and face whatever reflection awaited him. As the gunslinger stood before the mirror, a shiver ran down his spine. The glass felt alive, pulsing with an energy he hadn't anticipated. His image flickered momentarily, revealing not just his rugged face but fragments of a life well lived yet marred by choices he couldn't change. He saw flashes of his younger self, eyes bright with hope, dreams of adventure dancing in his mind. But the brightness faded rapidly, replaced by shadows creeping in. The reflection shifted. Faces of those he had wronged appeared, their eyes filled with pain and disappointment. A close friend who had trusted him stood there, silently pleading for forgiveness, while the faces of strangers he'd crossed blurred into a haunting montage of lost opportunities. With each flicker, the mirror replayed moments of choice, times when he could have walked away but didn't. It showed him streets he had left behind and paths not taken, all leading to a deeper understanding of the weight on his shoulders. The air grew thick as he searched for clarity in those shifting images. Was he truly the man he wanted to be? The flickering reflections tugged at his heart, urging him to confront not just the past but the future he still had a chance to reshape. As the gunslinger continued to stare into the mirror, the flickering images began to shift again, and an overwhelming sense of dread washed over him. Suddenly, the reflection morphed into a chilling vision of his future, or rather, a future he had never imagined. He saw himself standing alone in a desolate wasteland, surrounded by ruins of what once might have been a vibrant life. The laughter of friends had faded into silence, and the faces of those he loved were replaced by shadows, distant and unrecognizable. In this haunting portrayal, every choice he had made weighed heavily upon him. Shattered glass rained down from above, each piece reflecting a different version of what could have been. Friendships lost, opportunities abandoned, and a life wasted on violence and regret. As the fragments fell to the ground, they echoed like gunfire, a reminder of the pain he had caused others and himself. The gunslinger felt as though his heart was shattering with each falling piece. This was not just a vision. It was a warning of the consequences of his actions. Would he remain trapped in this cycle of despair? Or could he still fight for a future that held hope? The air grew thick with uncertainty as he grappled with this revelation, aware that the choice was his to make. As the gunslinger stood transfixed before the mirror, a barmaid named Clara watched from behind the bar, her curiosity piqued by the intensity of his reaction. With her hands busy washing glasses, she couldn't help but steal glances at the gunslinger, recognizing that something monumental was unfolding in front of her. She had seen many patrons come and go, but this man was different. There was a weight about him, as if the very air around him crackled with tension. Clara had heard the saloon's tales of the mirror and its power to reveal hidden truths, but witnessing the gunslinger's emotional struggle stirred something deep within her. She sensed he was at a crossroads, grappling with his past while standing on the brink of a new path. The flickering images in the mirror reflected not only his turmoil but also the possibility of redemption. Drawing closer, Clara's heart raced as she considered the courage it took to confront one's demons. In that moment, she decided to speak up. "You don't have to face this alone," she said softly, her voice cutting through the heavy silence. "Sometimes, sharing your burden can lighten the load." Her words hung in the air, a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters, and she hoped they would reach him before he made his choice. The gunslinger stood frozen before the mirror, his heart racing as the haunting reflections danced before him. Each flicker of light brought forth a new wave of regret, forcing him to relive decisions that had led to pain and isolation. Memories of recklessness flooded his mind, moments when he had chosen anger over forgiveness, gunfire over conversation. The faces of those he had let down appeared again and again, each one a ghost calling for recognition. As he stood there, he felt the weight of their accusations pressing heavily on his chest, drowning out the laughter and camaraderie around him. He could almost hear their voices whispering what might have been if he had embraced kindness instead of vengeance. The possibility of connection slipped through his fingers like sand, leaving him with nothing but emptiness. Clara's words echoed in his ears. You don't have to face this alone. But could he? Could he summon the strength to change the trajectory of his life? A battle raged within him. One part yearned for redemption while another clung to familiar patterns of despair. The mirror continued to challenge him, and each powerful reflection was an invitation to confront the man he had become, and perhaps find a way back to who he once dreamed of being. Just as the gunslinger stood contemplating his fate, the door of the saloon creaked open once more, and in stepped Jake, a rival known for his quick temper and quicker draw. Jake's eyes narrowed as he spotted the gunslinger at the bar, clearly lost in thought. He strode over confidently, a smirk playing on his lips as he broke the silence. "Looks like you've been having a little heart-to-heart with that mirror," he taunted, drawing the attention of nearby patrons. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Laughter faded into tense whispers. The gunslinger felt his heart pound as Jake leaned closer, invading his personal space. "What's the matter? Afraid of what you'll see? Or maybe you're just too cowardly to face it." The challenge hung heavily in the air. Frustration bubbled within the gunslinger. He had been trying to wrestle with his own demons, and now here was this rival, pushing him toward a confrontation he had desperately sought to avoid. Clenching his fists, he could feel the heat rising in his veins. The mirror's reflections flashed through his mind, reminders of the better path he could take. Yet Jake was tempting him to surrender to violence. "Why don't you settle this like men?" Jake goaded, reaching for his gun. The choice loomed before him: fight back against this provocation or choose peace and embrace the possibility of change. The tension in the saloon reached a boiling point as Jake's hand hovered over his gun, taunting the gunslinger to make his move. The murmurs of the patrons fell silent, all eyes fixed on the two men locked in a dangerous standoff. The gunslinger could feel his heart pounding in his chest, each beat echoing the weight of his past choices. This was it, a moment that would define him, where he had to choose between embracing his violent history or stepping into the light of redemption. With every flicker from the ornate mirror behind him, he recalled the faces of those he had harmed, along with Clara's encouraging words urging him to seek a better path. He weighed the thrill of violence against the possibility of change, wondering if he could truly turn away from the chaos that had defined his life. As Jake laughed, mocking him for hesitating, a fire ignited within the gunslinger. He knew that giving in would only lead to more regret and pain, not just for himself but for everyone else involved. In a flash, he made his decision. He would not be the man who drew first blood today. Instead, he would face this rival with courage and conviction, hoping to carve out a new fate for himself and perhaps find redemption in the process. The showdown in the saloon ended in a tense silence, the air thick with uncertainty as the gunslinger faced the aftermath of his choice. With Jake disarmed and backed down, a palpable shift occurred in the room. The patrons who had been witnesses to this moment now regarded him with a mix of awe and respect. For the gunslinger, the immediate danger had passed, but a different kind of battle was just beginning. As he stepped away from the confrontation, he felt a weight lifted from his shoulders, a hint of peace replacing the chaos that had defined his past. He looked back at the mirror that had haunted him moments before. Now, it seemed to reflect a glimmer of hope. The faces of those he had wronged didn't vanish, but they shifted from tormenting reminders to motivations for change. Clara approached him cautiously, her eyes filled with encouragement. "You chose wisely," she said softly, sensing his inner turmoil was far from over. While he had resisted the urge to fall into violence, he understood that true redemption would require more than one courageous choice. He vowed to seek forgiveness from those he had hurt and to rebuild what he could. The path ahead was unclear, but for the first time in a long while, he felt ready to take it, aware that every step forward was a step toward healing his fractured soul. As the dust settled in the saloon, the gunslinger glanced back at the ornate mirror that had played such a pivotal role in his journey. The once pristine surface was now marred by a large crack, a jagged line that ran through the center, fracturing his reflection into two distinct images. One side still held the flickering shadows of his troubled past, while the other hinted at the promise of new beginnings. The cracked mirror symbolized both shattered dreams and the potential for change. It was a reminder of the violence he had managed to resist and a testament to the courage he had found in himself. The faces of those he had wronged lingered in his mind. Their gazes softened now, as if they understood that healing would take time. Outside the saloon, the sun began to set over Dusty Hollow, casting warm hues across the sky. The gunslinger felt a sense of hope rising within him. He knew that while he had a long road ahead, each step could lead to redemption rather than despair. As he turned away from the mirror and moved toward the door, he embraced the uncertainty of his future, determined to rebuild his life piece by piece, just like the shards of glass that now told a story of resilience rather than defeat.